Well, is that mic up? You might want to turn the mic up a little bit, if you can. Now can you take it up another notch? Okay, that should be, it sounds like it'd be right. I want to thank all of you for coming today. This is very exciting to be here at Alfred University. I've had the pleasure of meeting a lot of folks that are doing some very exciting stuff, and I really appreciate the time we've had to spend, and I'll be here this afternoon to talk to some other folks. What I want to talk to you today, though, about is kind of my journey, because in talking here, Rick Stevens, who had been in the college that I actually came from to be here tonight, was provost there, had really hoped I might share some of the trials and tribulations associated with trying to do outreach for communities and to create centers, regardless of where it is or what department, and talk a little bit about some of those things that might be of value to some of you here at Alfred. And so I'll start a little bit. I started at Catawba back in 1993, and I was asked to come start an environmental major. And when I began looking at environmental majors across the country, I saw some of the types of things they were doing, and I was very interested in seeing us work towards some of those types of goals. Some of those types of things included experiential learning. They included creating a campus that really focused on sustainability, and developing leadership. And so, I thought, man, this is going to be a real challenge and an exciting challenge. And that's how I got started at Catawba. And so it's about 1993, and we began the first environmental program there, first of 4. We now have 4 environmental programs at Catawba: environmental science, environmental studies, environmental education, and then a sustainable business and community development. All these came along later. Let's see if I can take this out so I don't bend so much. Then one of the focuses, as I mentioned, was really engaging students in the community. And I looked for particular ways to do that. And I myself was also interested in being involved in the community, and in different ways. And one of the things I did at first was actually get involved. The state of North Carolina didn't really have very many environmentally focused organizations at that time. Not sure where you were in the state of New York, but North Carolina did not. And I got involved in helping start the Land Trust for Central North Carolina. I started, with the help of many people, an organization called the Rowan County Sustainable Community Development Commission, which ultimately became endorsed by the county. Started a Greenway committee that was originally grassroots, but it's now been taken over by the city. And I've been on that committee now for almost 20 years. And some other organizations that don't come to mind right now. One was, I do remember one, North Carolina Watershed Coalition. And I'm telling you this because I want you to understand how a center might kind of naturally evolve. My involvement with these gave me opportunities to engage students, and so I kept looking for ways to partner these organizations back into the campus. And so I tell you this because sometimes we don't realize that maybe getting out and being engaged in these fashions with organizations that are of interest can actually be very important. Ultimately, I was presiding over all 4 of those at different times, and that really became an advantage. At the time, we did not have a center ourselves. It was just an environmental program. But I did learn a lot from doing that right from the start about how organizations operate, the kinds of things that need to be done, developing partnerships and collaboration. And everything I've been involved in since I came to Catawba, every project, every initiative, is not a John Ware initiative. I discarded the use of the word "it's my project" or "me" early on, because in reality, once you get somebody to work with you on something, it's our project. It's something we are working on. And so probably if you look at my talent, it has been to facilitate bringing good people together that are motivated and helping make things happen. But it really, when I show you what we're going to talk about here today, just keep in mind there are a lot of people involved, a lot of great people that I owe a lot to, in terms of making things happen. And so we were involved in a number of things, and I'll show you a couple. One was the Greenway for Salisbury. At the time, there was not a Greenway system. There had been some talk. It was controversial. I thought, man, this would be a good one to get involved in. And so I opted. A fellow had tried to start it and decided to quit because he had made everybody mad. And so I had talked to him, and he said, how about taking this thing over? And I said, well, okay. And so the next thing I knew, I was president of the Greenway Committee, and I went around getting people to help me, and we started working on a Greenway plan. And what was kind of exciting about it was there's a lot of opportunities there if you really want to study and look at it. And probably over about a 10-year period, I've had students doing all kinds of projects related to the Greenway system, looking at how you do it ecologically, helping look at ways and potentials for areas of design, whatever. And it was just a good opportunity that helped the community and helped our students at the same time. And some of those things were developed, things like brochures, and do bird studies or plant studies on that Greenway system. In fact, in one portion, we even planted trees to create an arboretum. And all this required study. It required, carrying projects from one end to the other. So these were all big things. And ultimately, we got a lot of recognition for it. We were a college that had actually created and started the Salisbury Greenway system. One other aspect, I began to look at the potentials associated with the college. At the time I came aboard, it was a 110-acre ecological preserve, but there were lots of properties around it, and I knew those properties were going to get taken away pretty soon if somebody didn't do something. So I started looking for ways to bring more property onto that preserve and help protect it. And over time, I would go to one person for one parcel and another person for another and talk to them about what I was doing. And because a good portion of this was in a floodplain, a lot of them really thought, well, this is a good reason to do this, and it's an advantage to them. They can make a gift and get a tax deduction. So we win, they win. And so over that period of time, we created an ecological preserve that's surrounding now 3 sides of the campus, and there's portions I don't have up here now that we're just about to receive that are the product of conversations I had 15 years ago. Now, one of the things that was really interesting is by bringing all that land together, we were able to create a greenway that went right around the campus. And so looking for funding, what we did was help the city find grant funding. And we were in the midst over time of making a transition to where the city owned the greenway system and managed it. But as I mentioned, initially they weren't. And so over time, we actually planned a greenway system that went around 3/4 of the college. And we've just, since this illustration was made 15 to 18 years ago, we've just about put it all together. And in fact, when I get back next week, the first thing I'm supposed to be doing is working on a grant for a bridge to come back onto campus. And so it's exciting. And it's exciting. The other part that's exciting, there's younger people out there that were as excited as I was 20 years ago that want to get in there and make all those visits and contacts. So it's just a matter of helping them along with some of the experience I've had. Another thing we were involved with, and as I mentioned, we continually look for ways to get our students involved and our faculty. And just a little picture of some of those types of activities, which have gone on for a pretty long time. If you go back and look at that now, it's very, very different. It's all lush and green. Another thing was a neat partnership, and this kind of partnership can go on with any kind of department, but we created a statewide environmental science day, and we partnered with a local schools, our local school system, to do it. But in addition, we brought in numerous partners: North Carolina Fish and Wildlife, the Natural Resources Commission, and just a number of local organizations that had an interest and provided opportunities for students to come and learn. So those are kinds of things that you can do, and they don't cost a huge amount of money if you can get a lot of partners. And in the process, brought a lot of good students to our campus to learn, to communicate with each other, and learn from the experiences. And then in 1996, I came to the realization that, and I was talking with other faculty, and I had a division director that was very excited about the work we were doing. And I told him, you know, we're functioning kind of like a center. And he said, you really are. And he said, John, I'm going to go with you, and let's go talk to the president. And so we went to the president of the college and said, you know, maybe we should consider creating a center for the environment. And the advantage of a center, this particular center at that time, when we created it, gave a kind of a different organization than the department structure. And so it had its own mission. There are a lot of advantages to that, and it allowed us to bridge departments in many ways in terms of our activities. But that was the year we began the center, and it all operated out of my office and a little room next door. As time went on, as I mentioned, we started doing conferences. At one time, we were holding the second largest the second largest statewide watershed conference in the nation. And here again, it was that partnership with other organizations, and in this case, we created the North Carolina Watershed Coalition, and I was presiding over it. And I was able to, through those connections, develop that conference with the help of all those involved. Our students did lots of projects to set examples, and it gave us a chance to involve students from our campus and others in the kinds of conferences we were doing. Then in 1997, we began thinking maybe we need a facility, and it actually came out of a conversation the president of the college had with me one day. We were laying out land for a conservation easement on our ecological preserve, the two of us, and we were looking over a map, and he said, well, be sure and leave you plenty of room in case you decide we need a building one of these days. And I had some grant money left over from a project we could put towards it. So with $10,000, I asked him if it was okay if I started on the design for this thing, and hired an architectural firm, and and the president of the college and I began taking it around and showing it to different groups. We went to the Buildings and Grounds Committee. We talked to trustees. We talked to potential donors. Nobody was interested. And so with my tail between my legs, I kind of gave up on this project. But later on, I happened to mention this to an architect in Salisbury, a different architect, and I told her what we were doing, and she said, well, gosh, you know, why don't you try it again? If I help you, would you consider giving me the project? And I said, well, sure. And so we began again and began working on a new design. This was about a year later. A little different approach, though. Instead of working towards the model, a physical model you could see, we started by interviewing people and talking to people and asking them what they would like. And we ended up getting lots and lots of buy-in, but also great ideas from the campus around. And it's amazing because ground-up approaches are not something you often see in institutions. Often, and I can think of a building on campus that was a very top-down approach. This was years ago, before Rick was there. But I've heard lots of complaints about that building, and I think at times it probably, what I've heard is that the faculty and the people involved in the building really didn't have any say about the building. And I think it's vitally important when you consider projects like that to get as much buy-in and involvement as you can. And so we did that, and we came up with a design that was a written document instead of a physical model. And I'll tell you the results of that here shortly. But again, the president was willing to go back with me and get out and start talking to people again. And this time we didn't go straight to the Buildings and Grounds Committee. We went out to different potential donors to see if there was any interest. He was interested in a capital campaign, and he said, "John, you know, we might could put this as a centerpiece for the capital campaign." And so the two of us went around talking to people and playing it up and trying to get a feel for whether it would be of interest. Also, about that time, we decided to put our ecological preserve under a permanent conservation easement. And that was a decision the trustees actually ultimately made. But it really protected land, because colleges all over the state and other areas of the country, I would talk to people where they were losing the special places their biologists and other faculty were using as their natural areas near campus. And it's amazing, they'd often call it the so-and-so natural area or whatever, but it wasn't protected. And so when the Buildings and Grounds Committee tried to decide in their master plan, as part of their master plan, where they want to put things, you know, it was no big deal. There was no representation, and so they'd often take that piece of property that was vital in terms of the educational opportunities and build on it. And so this gave us an opportunity to protect it permanently. And it's interesting, I had the dean of the School of Environment at Duke visit one day, and I said, "By the way, is Duke Forest protected by an easement?" And he said, "No." And I said, "Seems like an idea you may want to propose, because you never know what economic times are, you know, the economy changes. You have no idea what may occur." So just a thought. Now, all 1998, I get a phone call. I'm taking students on a field trip down to Ecuador. And I get a call in this little hotel, and I thought, who in the heck knows where I'm at? And it was the president of the college, and he said, "John, you won't believe this. One person is going to fund your entire project. One individual is the biggest gift ever given to the college." He said, "But one thing, she's 92, and you need to get home. As soon as you get home, you need to get to work on this, because she said that she wants it done right away." And so I got home and immediately looked for ways to really start pulling things together. And so that began the process, and it was an exciting process. And one of the things I did to integrate our students was to create a seminar that focused on this building and our potential building. And so I got students involved right on. And they had great ideas, many of which were actually ultimately employed in the building. And it was a fun semester because we knew there was actually going to be a product. And it was a great opportunity that I don't think happens in a lot of places. I hope our administrators realize the true potential of involving faculty in the design process. And we had our capital campaign, and there's Ms. Standback, who made the donation. And she did get to see it before she died. We finished it, and she made a visit, one walkthrough. We had a mud room. There was a documentary made about it, and there was, in the documentary, talked about the mud room. And Miss Standback had come over and visited, but her daughter wanted to leave after about an hour. And Miss Standback walked so slowly that she said, "Mom, we got to go," you know. And I remember her saying so explicitly, "But I haven't seen the mudroom." But that was her last visit. She did get her one visit and then soon after passed away. And she was a wonderful woman and so extremely sharp in her thinking and clear in her thinking. And it was just a wonderful privilege to have this lady, you know, as our benefactor for that special project. So 1999, we get started on the project, and it was you know, a very exciting time seeing this begin. And the LEADS program, if you're not familiar, it's a program that prevents greenwashing, so to speak, in built environment. And it was before that, and so we were kind of having to break a lot of ground. There weren't a lot of products out. We had to do a lot of research. And we, though, did a lot of things right. And we hired local people to help build the building. And I know they were very excited because we were able to place that building right into the environment. We were also working on the ecological preserve at that time. And here again, instead of just coming up with some designs, we brought in other organizations to partner with us. And then when you develop partnerships, I think one of the important things to think about is how are they going to benefit? And some benefit through their own jobs, just saying they're involved. Others may benefit in different ways. And I think it's very important to consider how is that individual going to benefit by helping us with our project, and being sure that you know and are very aware of how you can help them, because the chances are if you figure out how you can help them, they're going to help you, and then carry through with whatever you felt like was important. Often for some organizations it's getting notoriety that they were involved, and you kind of have to keep that out in front of people. And that project was a fun one. We involved students that actually worked for our Center for the Environment, doing the actual jobs. And this looks kind of ugly right now, but we went in and created a lot of impoundments and ponds. We took the water and hydraulics back to what they'd been long ago. And if you look now, it's really just truly beautiful because it's all grown back. But it gave our students a chance to be involved in something very special. We also partnered with the Land Trust for Central North Carolina on the acquisition of a property that we felt like could benefit the college. And it was going to be, and it is a partnership between the Land Trust and the college. And so we set out a goal of raising money to produce an ecological preserve. A wildlife refuge. Now that's different from what we were doing on campus. On the campus, it was focused on, education and taking students out and really truly providing trails they could walk on. Because you got to think, a lot of these kids, and I say kids, but I mean young adults and adults may not have had that much experience out in the wild. And so you need to provide a way for them to experience things without putting hip waders on. And so that was the focus on that. It was a learning laboratory. On the wildlife refuge, though, and how many biologists are here? We got a couple, right? The important part is, and you're probably thinking of this right now, it's how remote is that area? Are people going to be messing with my studies? Is it remote enough that you can really get real data? And so that was part of the reason we took this on. And it was a combination of, as I said, it was a partnership with the Land Trust. And I will tell you, I remember thinking this distinctly, the roles of a faculty member in doing these kind of things is very different from what you would think. Because we had to go to the owner to buy it from him, and we wanted a good price. And I remember we asked him where we could meet, and he had this special place he liked to go that had lots of peanuts and cold beer. And he didn't want to talk about anything until we'd had about 3 beers. And so we had to shell peanuts and sit there and drink beer with him. And and I'm sure it's his technique, then you start talking about the price. And I thought, well, this is different from what you think sometimes you'd be doing in this kind of role. But ultimately came up with a price, and then we set out in different ways to support and find money for that project. One of the ways, and at the same time, we began to develop one of the state's first certification programs for our environmental program. We were first certification because the state of North Carolina started a program where you could be certified as an outdoor educator, an environmental educator. And we jumped on that opportunity and called them up and said, how can we do it? And we incorporated it into our coursework. Nobody else was doing that. So that if a student in their environmental education degree wanted to learn about that, they could actually get certification through our degree program. We continue this. It's an excellent program. But we employed our preserve and our wildlife refuge in programs where students can take groups and educate them about all kinds of things. And it gives our students a great opportunity to assimilate the information they're learning. In fact, often these quiet, shy students that you have, it helps them start bridging that gap between getting out in the public eye and doing things, because it's a specific area they know a lot about. And they can get into a mixed group of people and talk about it, and it really helps them make that transition to where they're just talking and getting out and interacting with the community. Just a picture of the wildlife refuge. That was my daughter back then, and Dr. Steve Coggin, who worked with us on that. But just a scene from that area. Now, we still hadn't raised money for that wildlife refuge at that time, and so one of the things we did was partnered on the creation of a fundraiser in the community, and it was actually very successful. But beyond that, what it did began bringing people's involvement into it, because it didn't matter what they were doing. They could be putting flowers on the table to help with this. They felt like they were now engaged in that project. And so we began seeing people engage and involve and feeling a part of it, because they were helping us get to our goal. And I thought this news article was pretty funny. Hoofing it for Mother Nature. And says, Dance nets $40,000 for South Yadkin Wildlife Refuge. And that was one of the first of that kind of event that we had for that. And it was a partnering event. And we put all the money towards that refuge purchase. And we continued on. Our center construction was continuing. And one of the things we did that was kind of unique, and we actually stipulated when the contractor was in the bid process that the contractors would be using our students as the waste managers. You have to do that because in reality, in a sense, the contractor has the legal rights over the property during the time they're constructing it. You just can't go walking on that property if you're even, And so they then became employees of the construction company, and the construction company worked with them to have hard hats, and and they were amazed how much they were actually saving on their campus in terms of products, because we were able to save about 86% of what went on there. Rick, what time do you have?
It's a quarter out.
Oh, I'm going to step it up. Then I apologize. I get carried away sometimes. I'm going to jump through a few and get to some important things. And these are things I'll just tell you a little bit about. We looked for ways to, may have to pull off, creating our gardens around the building. need to jump it ahead. We had initiatives with air quality that we began, creating an advisory board for the center, bringing in nationally known speakers, and I need to get us up because I want to spend some time on the last years. But you can get a feel for the dynamics of a center. Now, one of the things that we did that, oh, it's not that. You know, I put this talk together, rearranged it all this morning, and I realized I just put too many darn things on here. It's ever happened to you? But anyway, I don't know what I was thinking. I forgot I had to click on everything. Now, one important thing I want to mention is this. 2009, Dr. Rick Stevens joined our administration as provost. And I want to say this is kind of interesting. Prior to Rick's arrival, the center had been focused in community outreach and its own students. You know, we were just a resource, value-added education for our students, but it was mostly outreach. And the college, in a sense, never really showed an interest in us being highly involved on campus. To be all on, you know, in fact, they said as such. At one time, I had a luncheon meeting with the president, and he wanted to say, well, we really want to do our own thing on this stuff, and so we didn't. But Rick came aboard, and he said, you know, and I admire Rick because Rick, of all the provosts we've had, he has this ability to really look at the big picture. He's the first provost, I think, that really understood this center. And he got excited about it, and he helped make us, not make us, but helped encourage us to really get engaged in campus. And so the rest of our projects began to focus not just on community. We still did the community, and we're still involved in everything I've shown you, but we really got engaged in our campus. And of course, Rick is your provost now here at this institution, in case anybody's here that did not know that. And one of the things Rick has always stressed, and I agree with him, it's something I found out, is that, you know, it's engagement with people that makes things happen. All these kinds of things I've been talking about happen because of relationships. And unless you're engaged and involved, those relationships don't appear. And Rick's told me this, and I have witnessed this myself. This is one of our mingles that we have related to the center, and I've circled Rick standing there right in the midst of everything. And that's very important. And so what I want to start finishing with are several things that I think are real important. One of the things is, you know, number one, how do you engage faculty across campus? Number two, how do you really develop some structure around getting students involved and engaged? And number three, what can you do to make a campus make that shift towards going green? And so all of these things are important things. And I may just stop using slides so I can focus on this, because this is very important. So after all of these years of trying to make this kind of thing occur, because it's so difficult to create a center and keep it rolling and engaged, because by building a center and getting staff on board, two things happen. One is you've got to look after that staff. And I teach half-time, so I have to look after the staff involved, and you have a responsibility there. So I began dropping out of other organizations because I needed to focus on our own organization. Well, that's one thing. And I can't think of the second one. So, anyway, what was I going to tell you? I may have to come back to the second one. Let me come back to that. But I lost my thought. I looked out in the audience, and everybody's looking so interested. So one of the things that's important is that you, so how do you engage students? And one of the things we began to do, and this is after Rick got here, is we created a program in which we developed opportunities for them to be in a specific service-related program. And that service-related program at the time was with a stipend they received. Later on, we enhanced that and developed an entire scholarship around it. And of the things I've seen that have been really successful, I think that's one of the most successful things that we've done. And I do remember what the second thing was. And the second related to getting the whole faculty involved. So I want to get on that too. So let me jump over to that. So how do you do that? And one of the real success stories in terms of this, and this actually came out after that meeting I had with Rick, when Rick said, John, we'd like you more involved in all aspects with that center. What can you do? And we created a national summit, and I asked how many faculty on campus would like to participate. I sent out a request, and I was amazed how many faculty were willing to volunteer their time to create this summit. And we had lots and lots of meetings, and there was a lot of excitement in building it. We partnered ultimately with the Rocky Mountain Institute to create it, but it brought students on campus to learn, you know, about environmental stewardship. We brought people in that were mover shakers that had made things occur. We partnered with the Rocky Mountain Institute in many ways, and some of the projects, and these are all pictures of faculty that held focus groups in the different areas that they teach in and how it relates to environment. And it's a difficult thing to do. It's hard to raise money for projects like this. It's been a total challenge all along. But in terms of bringing faculty together, it's been exceptional. And it really helped us bridge over into that area. And sorry. Oh, that's what I wanted. And then to make things like that happen, it often takes volunteers. Now, does anybody recognize who that is? That's right, she's sitting right there. Rick Stevens' wife, Deb Stevens. Deb, we felt like, our whole staff felt like, of all the people that's volunteered, she was the most committed and put the most time into anything during her stay there with us. And we were able to accomplish great things, and she was there all along for several years, helping us make that happen. When she left to come here, we thought, oh man, that hurts. We hate to see both of them go. So you got some good people here. Another important thing was to create a campus-wide organization. You know, one of the big blocks in terms of letting people see what you're doing is that often they're segregated so much. And so somebody's trying to figure out what's going on the campus, it's hard to do. And we created an organization which is a coalition of organizations on campus, and it's clubs. Anybody's organization can be involved. And we pull together and we have speakers come in and we address different topics. And together we try to handle that. But at the same time, different entities want their own recognition. And so they've got that too. But we all come together in a bigger initiative, and that's our campus. And that's a picture I took just a couple of weeks ago of our service scholarship. Another thing that's been really important on campus has been our Green Revolving Fund. And that's come along over the last several years, and we funded it with about $200,000, and it's a revolving fund. Now, over the years, we've tried so many times to get things done on campus we thought were important. And although we, and I mean those on campus that feel like the environmental initiatives are important, were top of the list, the ultimate decision makers might not necessarily think so. And so often, what we had finally got into the plan would be cut at the last minute, and then we find out later. By creating a green revolving fund, I think it's very attractive to a donor because the funding they provide is perpetuated. I mean, it just starts a perpetual cycle, and what you look for are energy savings in different ways, and there are programs out there, and this is part of the $1 Billion Green Challenge if you want to know more about it, but they can actually help you account for things. And what you do is you have interdepartmental exchanges of funds. So, in other words, you have your budget for your green revolving fund. You have put in $30,000 lights or $60,000 worth of lights in the theater arts department. You calculate what the savings to shift from the lights they were using, incandescent or whatever, to LED, and then you take that money you're saving and put it back in that green revolving fund. And we're doing that for a multitude of projects. And we send requests out to our faculty and our students, and we've even got a mini grant program for our students, so that they can make their own recommendations. It has helped us take another leap, because all of a sudden these people that are just frustrated because why didn't the college fix this? Why didn't they do this? They can say it to a committee made up of trustees and faculty and administration, and it gets, often, if it's really makes sense, it can get done. And it's first on the list. I mean, it's the top priority. And another part of that is it leads into the next thing, and that is creating with your own plans a sustainability plan for the campus, overarching plans, so that you continue to move ahead on these things. Two other projects we've undertaken recently, and this will wrap it up here in a second. One is what we call our Green Step Initiative. This didn't exist 6 months ago. But what we've done is we got the funds together to hire an engineering and design firm to advise us that had experience in these kinds of things, to design and look at what's the greatest capacity we could have for putting, for instance, solar on our buildings, along with a lot of other things like water-saving features, things like this. And we went in and made those calculations. And what's intriguing is, with the tax credits and things of this nature, there are certain people out there that it makes sense to invest in something like that, and they can own it. And so, and it's a very complex thing, and the only way we could accomplish pulling all of that together was have a design firm that would normally come in and be on our team, speak for us and look out for our interests. Because the other way to do it is you hire the people that are going to put it in, and you don't ever know if this is going to work right or not. I mean, I'm sorry, but we had a lot of opportunities there, and it didn't seem to ever materialize. By this way, we were pretty sure of what we were doing, and we had an expert telling us and so we just kept pushing. And this is going to be the biggest array of solar energy output for the combination of all other colleges in the state of North Carolina, colleges and universities. It's that big, 1 megawatt. And here again, the real cost is only about half of what it's costing us. In 6 years, they're going to donate it back to the college. For 6 years, the people that put it in are going to own it. Then they'll donate it back to the college because they'll depreciate it out. And we got to put in and fix new roofs and put in a solar system that's going to last us 20 years. And so that's something a campus like you, with this renewable energy program you've got here, it's a no-brainer. This is the kind of thing you might want to be looking at. And we've taken a campus, and we haven't sacrificed any of the campus. This is all on buildings. So we're not taking away land that the campus needs. It's up on building tops, and like I said, yeah.
We have no sun.
Well, something to look into, and I'm sure Germany's got all that solar. And let's look at the latitude, because I imagine it's not probably far off from where we're sitting right now. And then the second thing, in terms of outreach, and we were talking about this with some of the students over lunch, that we just started in the last 6 months, is we partnering with an organization called Smart Power that have a lot of experience in doing this. And what we bring to the table is the capacity and the connections. Our email list is about 9,000 people. We have developed relations over a long period of time, and we've got students that would excited about doing outreach. They are bringing in expertise, and in addition, there's an organization called Energy Sage, and what they do is they're able to vet contractors for us, who takes all the work out for us and all the headaches. And then they've got a very simple system where people can go on, they can examine their possibilities, they list their information, send it out, and then different contractors that have been approved by Energy Sage can then make a bid on the project, and the homeowner makes all the decisions after that. We're out of it. But we will look back and look at how much progress we've made. But it's going to serve both businesses and it'll serve the homeowners. And it's going to be a great opportunity for people. We have our kickoff on October 2nd. And just got Elijah Motika's little band, you know, that he had, and he's going to be playing some music. There's some Catawba graduates. And then we're going to kick off by bringing Brian Keene, who started the Smart Power organization, in. I'll be speaking, and we're going to try to rev things up and get the community change. So to end, these are the kinds of opportunities. And I actually was here yesterday, and I got to thinking, I'm not talking on the right thing. And so this morning I got up really early and said, here's what I'm going to do. And I apologize for having so many slides. I just had to move quickly to make a change. But any questions?